I wanted to talk to you about Studio Ghibli. In particular, 4 films that I just absolutely love. Studio Ghibli has definitely been such an influence, really making me love Japanese animation and the Japanese culture. Like, this was really how I got introduced to it. So I wanted to talk to you about 4 films in particular, and that are my absolute favorite from Studio Ghibli. I felt like these films, in general, they were aimed for a bit of an older audience, as opposed to other Studio Ghibli films like Ponyo or My Neighbor Totoro. The 4 films I wanted to talk about were Nazca in the Valley of the Wind. So this one's actually not technically a Studio Ghibli film, because it was made before Studio Ghibli was even a studio, but it was created by the co-founder, Hayao Miyazaki, who is the studio co-founder. People generally consider Nausicaa as a Studio Ghibli film, and it's one of my favorites, so I'm going to talk about it. So we have Nazca, Valley of the Wind, and then we have Castle in the Sky, as well as Spirited Away, and of course my absolute favorite, Princess Mononoke. All these films they're all directed and written by Miyazaki. And all the music was produced by, oh, I'm going to butcher this, Joe Hisashi. Well, let's never say that again, because that's just, ouch. So let's start with Nausicaa. This movie revolves around a young princess named Nazca, and she's from the Valley of the Wind. That's the title. Nausicaa, she can communicate with these giant insects that they live in this toxic jungle. And it got that way through some post-apocalyptic event, like triggering event. So these insects, they have such a cool design. I remember when I first saw the movie, I had never seen anything quite like it. It's like a caterpillar that was like the size of a bus. It's super interesting. So Nazca is a very peace-loving person, and this is great. This is great for her village because they have a symbiotic relationship with the insects of the jungle, the toxic jungle, that's nearby their village. But one day we've got these guys. These are the Tolmekians, and they crash land right next to the village. They really want to reclaim this toxic jungle, and they want to make it, habitable again. And so they want to burn it down. What could go wrong? So it all escalates from there. And I won't say any more because that will just spoil the movie. So throughout this film, you get these themes of anti-war and environmental, and just how humans in general have really had this negative effect on this world. And despite, having some symbiotic relationship, there are others that will continue to push to increase these negative effects. What really interests me with this movie was the character designs and the designs of the airships and the technology it all uses. And, the story is well told and the music is just phenomenal. So if you haven't seen it, it still holds up. It's a masterpiece and it's a great viewing experience. This one came out in 1984, and it still holds up. It's still a masterpiece, and I recommend it. Next up, we've got Castle in the Sky. So this one follows Shita and Pazu. These are 2 orphans, and they meet up and they go on an adventure together. They're searching for the floating legendary lost city of Laputa. And throughout this adventure, they're being chased by pirates, government agents, and they meet this really neat looking robot. Look at them go. So at the heart of it, it's an action-adventure movie, but it's also got some very interesting themes. So similar to Nausicaa, technology has just such a duality, right? Like, it's got this potential to be so good for society and so beneficial. But in the wrong hands, that same technology can be used for maliciousness and really just harmful to humanity as a whole. Once again, we have amazing music, amazing artwork. It really just captures the imagination. And the story being told, it's important. So this movie in particular is considered to be a steampunk milestone. So if you've got any interest in steampunk at all, or dieselpunk for that matter, like this might be right up your alley. You've got air pirates and airships and steam-powered robots. There's a lot of awesome steampunk to enjoy there. And then we come to Spirited Away. So Spirited Away is probably the most well-known of the Studio Ghibli films, and there's a reason behind that. This is Pixar's John Lasseter. John was a big fan of Miyazaki's work, and he convinced the Disney executives and the people in charge to buy the distribution rights for North America, and which this brought such a huge audience to, like myself included, to find and discover these films. So once again, we've got the incredible music by Joe Hisaishi. I don't know if I'm getting worse or better. The story revolves around Chihiro. So this young girl, she's transported into this world of kami. You know, it's a folklore, Japanese folklore world, and has to take up this job at a bathhouse, and she's trying to find a way to turn her parents, who have been turned into pigs, back into humans, and really escape back into the human world. So this film, it's got a ton of references to Japanese folklore, with depictions of different spirits from animals and plants, and you know, it kind of mirrors Alice in Wonderland. So we take the character Chihiro, which would be Alice, and we take her from the normal everyday life that she's living, and we put her, she's transported into this world of fantasy. She really goes on an adventure, and she comes out of the adventure as a different person. Another common theme in this film is Western consumerism. So there was this period in Japan where society was leaning away from traditional Japanese traditions, and there was a lot of influences from Western society. You can see in the beginning of the film, her parents are literally turned into like consumerist pigs. They just consume and consume, and they eat so much food, and at a certain point, they don't recognize themselves as humans anymore, and they don't want to see themselves as anything but consumers. Further into the film, when you see the owner of the bathhouse having these Western-styled clothing and Western-styled decor and furniture in her living spaces, while the employees live in a more traditional living quarters, minimalist Japanese style. So when Spirited Away came out, it became the most successful and highest-grossing Japanese film ever made, and it's definitely worth the watch. Now we've come to my absolute favorite film. This is Princess Mononoke. So this film has really heavy themes regarding the environment and how humans, through progress, they're just really negatively affecting wildlife and nature. And while this is not necessarily caused by evil intentions, more likely short-sightedness and greed. Through that, you really have some conflict within this film. So in this one, we follow Ashitaka. He's a young prince who is caught right in the middle of this conflict between the old gods of this forest and the humans who are consuming it for their natural resources. So Ashitaka is kind of stuck in the middle. So that it gives you this interesting perspective that you're able to see from both sides of it, and like you can see the old gods' point of view, and you can see the humans like doing their own thing, trying to survive. While Ashitaka is trying to bring peace to his conflict, things get out of hand, and it's quite the spectacle. So once again, to be expected with a Studio Ghibli film, we've got stunning animation, stunning artwork, and amazing music. This film came out in 1997, and you know, I think now more than ever the message still holds up, and with the ongoing conflicts of environmental issues today, you can really see how it all boils down to short-sightedness and greed from those in charge. And those are my favorite Studio Ghibli films. These are the ones that stuck with me throughout the years, and while there's been a lot of films done by Studio Ghibli, these are certainly my favorites. But if you haven't seen these movies are even the other Studio Ghibli films like Howl's Moving Castle, and if you really want to be depressed, you can watch Grave of the Fireflies. I wouldn't watch that more than once. I know some of you will stay away from animated films just because they're animated, but I feel like you're missing out on some real artwork and some powerful storytelling. So thank you for watching, and we'll catch you next time. So